playing Here I Stand Still, and unfortunately I noticed that I screwed up. As I'm trying to put people down for the turn, I see that good old Van Noort, the Protestant admiral, well, he actually isn't available yet. He's not available till turn 5, way down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab Leclerc. He's not quite as good, but he would have made it with the rolls that were made, and I'll put him there instead, along with maybe a little Dutch flag, just to remind me. But this is something that's missing that was in the original Here I Stand, which was a nice chart telling you where everyone showed up at time. Actually, in time. Actually, there were a couple of them. There was one right on the turn record chart that kind of told you that. And here we have something that tells you, here are leaders coming in, here are artisan scientists. This kind of covers that. But what's lacking is there was a nice timeline chart, and there isn't a single instance like there once was. In some ways, I understand they want to, preserve space, and they have this information on the sea captain chart, and somewhere or another the marriage chart has this information, and there's got to be leaders listed somewhere as well to tell you who shows up when. I know I found that before, but I don't see it right now. I've probably put them on the board already. Let's see what we got here. We got Santa Cruz. He doesn't have a number on him, so I don't know how I found that out. But yeah, there's a definite kind of, geez, this information is spread out a lot more than it was in the original. I'm not saying that's a horrible thing, but it is a harder startup cost for the first time you're playing it. Okay, so after reassigning the treasures and then rolling for the colonial treasures, no one's colonies disappeared. The English got a treasure marker, which is kind of interesting. A science bonus. Now, I remember vaguely reading about this. I assume they can turn it in for one of their science bonuses. I'm not sure what the rules are on that. I have to look at it. Do they just get it immediately, or do they have to play it as a treasure card? I'm not sure. Either way, though, there are these kind of like little bonuses in there. But I rolled a Virginia Dare bonus over for the Netherlands. And this is something that's not terribly clear from my memory of the rules. I'm not someone who's going to look over and try to find the answer necessarily unless the event comes up. But I don't remember this being clear. But I had to hunt for it, for one thing. It's on the back of slave trader counters. And I don't know if these are kind of exclusive. There's 2 Virginia Dare slave trader counters. Does it mean that is there a counter mix limitation in play here? And also, can people actually have 2 Virginia Dares? Can whatever? I mean, these things are, again, not right at the forefront of my head. And to look them up in this rule book, because it's a GMT style book with lots and lots of special things, these CDGs are going to have that. And the Here I Stand, and even more of this, force you to look into it a little deeper. Really hunt things down. There's no real answer to this unless you go to something with its compendium of events like Europa Universalis. You don't have a quick answer. You don't have, you really need that event book to explain every little detail, because cards and little charts and stuff are not going to do it. And that's one of the limitations that I think is just there for the CDGs, and I think this is pushing the boundaries, really. Here I Stand might as well. They're great games. Here I Stand certainly is. This one probably, I think, is. But they really are pushing the limitations of what you can fit on a little card. And once you go outside that little card, or outside that shit, or whatever it is that's going to remind you as a mnemonic, well, if you play it a lot, maybe you can remember them all. But if you are like me and you play a game a little bit at a time, you're probably better off with that big old book of events than you are facing these easier to handle physical items. Anyway, while I was looking through it, I found these Dutch Revolt, and these are a similar issue. I got no idea what these do. I kind of scanned the rule books, and then I found another one, Master of Netherlands, and I vaguely remember something about that, so I've got to look that up. But these Dutch Revolts, when I looked in the rules for the revolts, there doesn't seem to be anything. Maybe there's a card that generates them, but there sure is a big stack of these here. And they go, you know, +1, +2, kind of like Master of Europe. I don't know. I just don't know. And it does make the game kind of painful when you have to look up so many different little issues. Well, for the most part here, I dealt out the cards. Negotiations aren't really going anywhere. The Turks and Spanish can't come to an agreement because Spain wants Naples back and says, you know, as long as I'm not getting anything from you, why should I give you peace? You've got a war. Well, Turkey says, what? Eventually one of us is going to bite the other. We might as well have that security. And Spain says, no, I want my stuff back. Likewise, France and Spain start looking, and Spain says, yeah, I'm happy with Marseille, you know. The only danger here is the empire. And you've got two people kind of feeling nervous about that who aren't tied up in a war in terms of England and the Dutch. Now, or the Protestants. The empire and the Protestants are able to go to war at a 2. And that might be intriguing to the Protestants, just to maintain balance of power. England and the empire, it's a harder purchase, and they might be willing to support such an action. But we'll see how that's going to fall out. The most interesting thing, though, is these royal marriages may fuel some alliances, may fuel some agreements. The empire has 2 women out. Of course, there are a lot of women available now, which is very different from last turn. And one that's kind of confusing, and I don't know how it's going to work. Louise of Lorraine says here, added by event card not associated with any specific power. So I assume, even though she says turn 3 everywhere, she's not actually going to be simply added to this the pool here, and is probably someone who you can marry through an event card, set up your betrothal automatically. I don't know. We'll see when it comes out, if it comes out. All right. Try to push through the diplomacy and try to figure out what's going to happen. Well, the fallout from the deals has happened, and I'm not sure it's good at all. People are making deals with the Germans, which is just going to help them. If they can get victory points off of it, that's going to put them in a stronger and stronger position. So here's what happened. The first deal that happened was Marguerite de Valois with Henry IV Navarre. This is important because not only does it give a bonus for the French marriage, if it happens, but Henry gets a Protestant card, a card for the Protestants. Because the Protestants get an advantage, they're giving their treasure, which isn't a very good one, up to the French. After that, France decided, I want to marry Charles IX, to marry Queen of Scots. I don't want to try to support the German marriages too much, and I don't really see helping anyone else. Now, there's a penalty to this because they're from the same country, essentially. So they'll only use one of these 2 values instead of adding them together. That makes it less likely to be a successful marriage, but well, he wants to get it. But then he goes ahead and makes a deal for Anne of Austria. The reason being that William of Orange said, hey, I really, really want Elizabeth of Austria. And Henry said, well, fine. If you're going to help the Germans, I'm going to help them too. And so we've got kind of almost a spite match taking place here, where a lot of different, you know, people who already have enough problems aren't agreeing to try to gang up on the guy who may just be in the lead. And in fact, we know that he's dangerously ahead. But at this point, it's kind of like, well, we're just counting on the Turks supporting this. It could well end very early if the Germans run away with this, the way it looks like they're going to. These additional people left. Leicester, who sticks around. Elizabeth, who, of course, doesn't want to marry. And Philip, who can't seem to get anybody willing to marry him either. Well, we'll see what we draw from that. Alright, now we're on to the spring deployment. Well, let's play some of that. The French look through their hand and they have Louise of Lorraine. They want to play her, bring her into play, and make her their marriage instead of Anna of Austria. Although Anna's a good choice, that leaves Anna kicking around. And I don't know, is Philip willing? Philip is willing to take that marriage instead. So it doesn't really help because someone's willing to do it. Anyway, there you have it. Well, troops have been placed at the beginning with the Turks up in Nice, Germans facing them down there in Belgrade. Spain moved into Marseille. Montmorency is down here in Orleans. He's planning on picking the troops up in Lyon. Whether or not that's for the best, I don't know, because he could have started here and saved 2 movement points. It might make more sense to be closer, but here's the thing. There's something in the way that would slow the Spaniards down that they may want to take. That's kind of the thinking there, I don't know. Dutch positioning themselves to move here, and the English with Leicester have moved up into York to position themselves against possible Irish threat that they think is likely because of their cards. Lots and lots of marriages as we see. I'm going to load this one up because it's, getting close.